I know that you are super excited to learn about triangle properties. And this first piece of triangles that we're going to talk about are how to classify triangles by their side lengths and their angle measures. Okay, so let's talk about what it means to be a triangle. A triangle is a polygon that has three sides, which you probably already knew that, but just making sure in case someone didn't know that. Alright, so there are three different ways to classify a triangle by its side lengths. What are the ways that we can classify triangles by their side lengths? You guys are so smart. You're like geometry experts, man. You guys totally got it right. One of the ways to classify it is called an equilateral. And an equilateral triangle is a triangle with three congruent sides. If you guys see, I have three little tick marks on my sides, which means all three sides are congruent. Okay, so all sides are congruent in an equilateral triangle. The second way, an isosceles triangle, which is when at least two of the sides are congruent. So this side and this side are congruent, so it makes it isosceles. Now, something to think about. Is an equilateral an isosceles triangle? Does it have at least two congruent sides? Yes, it does, you guys. So an equilateral has two identities. It's an equilateral and it's technically isosceles as well. So that's something to kind of think about. So an equilateral has two congruent sides, so it's kind of like a special case of an isosceles triangle. Okay, and something to think about. Are all isosceles triangles equilateral triangles? No, they're not, because not all isosceles have three congruent sides, but are all equilateral triangles isosceles? Yes, they are. You guys are so smart. All equilateral triangles are isosceles because they have at least two congruent sides, so something to think about. All right, and lastly, a scalene is a triangle that doesn't have any congruent sides. So it's sad because it doesn't have any congruent sides, even though it really wanted to, you guys, but it just can't. So that's how we classify by sides. We also classify triangles by their angle measures. Okay, so the first way to do this is called an equiangular, which that is when all of your angles are congruent. So if you see, I drew our little arc symbols on each of the angles. Okay, so something else to think about, if all of the angles are congruent in equiangular triangle, sorry, that's hard to say. Try to say equiangular 5 times as fast as you can say it. Equiangular, equiangular, equiangular. See, I'm failing. It's really hard to say. But anyway, so if all three angles are congruent in an equiangular triangle, what does each angle have to be? Well, we know there's 180 degrees in a triangle, which means if all three of these are the same, if we divide that bad boy by 3, we'd get 60. So in an equiangular triangle, all three angles are 60 degrees, which is pretty cool, All right, we also have an acute triangle, which that is when all of your angles are acute. How acute? That's a board slapper. But anyway, so an acute triangle is when all the angles are acute. So let's think about it. Is an equiangular triangle an acute triangle? Yes, it is, because all angles are acute. Now, is every acute triangle an equiangular triangle? You guys are so smart. No, it's not, because an acute triangle can't always be equiangular because although their angles are acute, they might not always be congruent. So all equiangular triangles are acute triangles, but not all acute triangles are equiangular triangles. So be careful, be careful. There is a difference. All right, another way to classify a triangle by an angle is a right angle. And what distinguishes a right triangle, what distinguishes a right triangle is to have one right angle. Which, if you think about it, can a triangle have more than one right angle in it? Well, if all the degrees in a triangle adds up to be 180, okay, can we have more than one right angle? No, we can't, because if we had two right angles, we'd already be at 180, and triangles have 3 angles in them. So it doesn't make sense to have more than one right angle. So again, something else to think about. And the last way to classify a triangle by its angle measures is an obtuse triangle, which means it has one obtuse angle in it. And again, like before, in a right triangle, It can only have one obtuse angle because if it goes over 90 degrees, which an obtuse angle is over 90 degrees, if it goes over 90 degrees and we had two angles that were obtuse, we'd already be over 180. So a triangle can only have one obtuse angle in it. All right? So those are the ways we classify. So now we're going to classify the following triangles based on their angles and sides. Say what? All right, so this first example. Okay, if we see here, let's start with the sides. We have three congruent sides. So what's the name of the triangle with three congruent sides? You guys are so smart. Equilateral, so we know it's kind of an equilateral. Technically, since it has at least two congruent sides, what else could it be? It could also technically be isosceles, but usually we only classify isosceles if two of the sides are congruent. If only two sides are congruent, but technically this is also an isosceles triangle, so be careful. But I'm going to classify it as equilateral for the sides, and the angle, since I have three congruent angles, it means it's equiangular. And since we know an equiangular triangle, all the angles are 60, technically it's also an acute triangle because all the angles are acute. So it's an equilateral, acute, equiangular, and if you want to slide in isosceles there, you could. All right, so awesome, you guys. All right, so example 2. These should be going in your handy dandy notebook, by the way. Example 2, let's start with the side links. So I have at least two side links that are congruent. So what's the triangle with at least two sides that are congruent? Holy hot dog, it is an isosceles triangle. So this is isosceles. And if we classify it by angle measure, I spot an obtuse angle. And if it has one obtuse angle, it's an obtuse triangle. So this is an isosceles obtuse triangle. Pretty nifty, right? And lastly, example 3. Let's classify it by its sides. So none of my sides are congruent. So what is the kind of triangle that doesn't have any congruent sides? Holy hot dog, it is a scalene triangle. Scalene triangles don't have any congruent sides. Okay, and since I have one right angle in it to classify it by its angle measure, it would be a scalene triangle that's also a right triangle. So it's a right scalene or a scalene right triangle. All right, and that's it for this one, you guys. That's all we're going to talk about with our triangle classification. So I hope you've enjoyed this section, all the example problems we did on the Prezi. So no additional example problems. It's sad, I know. But don't you worry, you're going to learn a lot more nifty triangle properties in just a moment. And you'll have lots more examples to do, so don't you worry.